Lesson 28, Patients and Doctors. First listen and then answer the following question. What are patients looking for when they visit the doctor? This is a skeptical age, but although our faith in many of the things in which our forefathers fervently believed has weakened, our confidence in the curative properties of the bottle of medicine remains the same as theirs. This modern faith in medicines is proved by the fact that the annual drug bill of the health services is mounting to astronomical figures and shows no signs at present of ceasing to rise. The majority of the patients attending the medical outpatients departments of our hospitals feel that they have not received adequate treatment unless they are able to carry home with them some tangible remedy in the shape of a bottle of medicine, a box of pills, or a small jar of ointment, and the doctor in charge of the department is only too ready to provide them with these requirements. There is no quicker method of disposing of patients than by giving them what they are asking for. And since most medical men in the health services are overworked and have little time for offering time-consuming and little appreciated advice on such subjects as diet, right living, and the need for abandoning bad habits, etc., the bottle, the box, and the jar are almost always granted them. Nor is it only the ignorant and ill-educated person who has such faith in the bottle of medicine. It is recounted of Thomas Carlyle that when he heard of the illness of his friend Henry Taylor, he went off immediately to visit him, carrying with him in his pocket what remained of a bottle of medicine formerly prescribed for an indisposition of Mrs. Carlyle's. Carlyle was entirely ignorant of what the bottle in his pocket contained, of the nature of the illness from which his friend was suffering, and of what had previously been wrong with his wife. But a medicine that had worked so well in one form of illness would surely be of equal benefit in another. And comforted by the thought of the help he was bringing to his friend, he hastened to Henry Taylor's house. History does not relate whether his friend accepted his medical help, but in all probability he did. The great advantage of taking medicine is that it makes no demands on the taker beyond that of putting up for a moment with a disgusting taste. And that is what all patients demand of their doctors, to be cured at no inconvenience to themselves. Kenneth Walker, Patients and Doctors.
Lesson 29, The Hovercraft. First listen and then answer the following question. What is a hovercraft riding on when it is in motion? Many strange new means of transport have been developed in our century, the strangest of them being perhaps the hovercraft. In 1953, a former electronics engineer in his 50s, Christopher Cockerell, who had turned to boat building on the Norfolk Broads, suggested an idea on which he had been working for many years to the British government and industrial circles. It was the idea of supporting a craft on a pad or cushion of low-pressure air, ringed with a curtain of higher-pressure air. Ever since, people have had difficulty in deciding whether the craft should be ranged among ships, planes, or land vehicles, for it is something in between a boat and an aircraft. As a shipbuilder, Cockerell was trying to find a solution to the problem of the wave resistance, which wastes a good deal of a surface ship's power and limits its speed. His answer was to lift the vessel out of the water by making it ride on a cushion of air, no more than 1 or 2 feet thick. This is done by a great number of ring-shaped air jets on the bottom of the craft. It flies, therefore, but it cannot fly higher. Its action depends on the surface, water, or ground over which it rides. The first tests on the Solent in 1959 caused a sensation. The hovercraft traveled first over the water, then mounted the beach, climbed up the dunes, and sat down on a road. Later, it crossed the channel, riding smoothly over the waves, which presented no problem. Since that time, various types of hovercraft have appeared and taken up regular service. The hovercraft is particularly useful in large areas with poor communications, such as Africa or Australia. It can become a flying fruit bowl, carrying bananas from the plantations to the ports. Giant hovercraft liners could span the Atlantic, and the railway of the future may well be the hover train, riding on its air cushion over a single rail, which it never touches, at speeds up to 300 miles per hour. The possibilities appear unlimited. Egan Larson, The Pegasus Book of Inventors.
Lesson 30, Exploring the Sea Floor. First listen and then answer the following question. How did people probably imagine the seafloor before it was investigated? Our knowledge of the oceans 100 years ago was confined to the two-dimensional shape of the sea surface and the hazards of navigation presented by the irregularities in depth of the shallow water close to the land. The open sea was deep and mysterious, and anyone who gave more than a passing thought to the bottom confines of the oceans probably assumed that the seabed was flat. Sir James Clark Ross had obtained a sounding of over 2,400 fathoms in 1839, but it was not until 1869, when HMS Porcupine was put at the disposal of the Royal Society for several cruises, that a series of deep soundings was obtained in the Atlantic, and the first samples were collected by dredging the bottom. Shortly after this, the famous HMS Challenger expedition established the study of the seafloor as a subject worthy of the most qualified physicists and geologists. A burst of activity associated with the laying of submarine cables soon confirmed the Challenger's observation that many parts of the ocean were 2 to 3 miles deep, and the existence of underwater features of considerable magnitude. Today, enough soundings are available to enable a relief map of the Atlantic to be drawn, and we know something of the great variety of the seabed's topography. Since the sea covers the greater part of the Earth's surface, it is quite reasonable to regard the seafloor as the basic form of the crust of the Earth, with, superimposed upon it, the continents, together with the islands and other features of the oceans. The continents form rugged tablelands, which stand nearly 3 miles above the floor of the open ocean. From the shoreline, out to a distance which may be anywhere from a few miles to a few hundred miles, runs the gentle slope of the continental shelf, geologically part of the continents. The real dividing line between continents and oceans occurs at the foot of a steeper slope. This continental slope usually starts at a place somewhere near the 100-fathom mark, and in the course of a few hundred miles reaches the true ocean floor at 2,500 to 3,500 fathoms. The slope averages about 1 in 30, but contains steep, probably vertical cliffs and gentle sediment-covered terraces. And near its lower reaches, there is a long tailing off, which is almost certainly the result of material transported out to deep water after being eroded from the continental masses. T.F. Gaskell, Exploring the Seafloor, from Science Survey.